And hello, welcome to Subversive Radio Podcast. And yes, of course, who else? It's me, Keith Giles, and I'm your host. Hey, thank you for listening. We took a little bit of a break. I had a little bit of vacation here because my oldest son, Dylan, graduated from high school about a little over a week ago from Orange County School of the Arts. And so we had family coming out to visit and had a great time. I took off work for about a week and a half, and we just had a great time with family and friends and relaxed. And actually, today was my first day back at work, and I just kind of felt the need to do a podcast. And so what I'm going to talk about in this podcast, typically, if you've been listening to my podcast or you just kind of scroll down the list, if you go to my blog, keithgiles.com, you'll see, under my podcasts, oh my gosh, just so many things. And typically what I do is I talk about, I've talked about dispensationalism, and I've talked about prophecy, Bible prophecy. I've talked about, of course, house church and about nonviolence and discipleship and following Jesus and church history and all kinds of stuff. Today, I wanted to talk about something a little more just practical and I guess experiential is a good word. So we're going to do that. I'm not sure how long it'll take. I'm not sure it'll even take the full half hour. So if we have time left over at the end, maybe I'll give you a little bit of an update on my next book project. How's that? How's that for a teaser? I'm sure you're all chomping at the bit. So anyway, so here's what I want to talk about. I would say probably about 2 weeks ago or so, a friend of mine called me and wanted me just to pray for him over the phone. He was going through a lot of stuff, struggling with some things, and as he was, so I called him and we were talking, and as he was kind of sharing with me, just what he'd been going through and how he was feeling, and just the place he felt himself in, not just emotionally, but that was part of it, but also just even feeling, he was just very honest with me, which I appreciated, just being very vulnerable and honest with me about not even feeling very connected to other Christians, and just not even sure how to deal with some of the despair and the feelings of depression and sadness and loneliness and things like that. And so as he was sharing these things with me, quite frankly, I was hearing myself in a lot of what he was telling me about, a lot of what he was sharing. And so as I was praying for him, I found myself praying for myself, really. I identified so closely with a lot of his feelings and a lot of his struggles that praying for him, in a way, was like praying for my own situation. And so when we finished praying, we talked about that a little bit. I just began to share with him, that I really found myself on the same page in many, many ways. A lot of the experiences and feelings he was going through. And so as we were talking about that, and again, just we were both being very honest and very vulnerable with one another, I just confessed that sometimes, and I would say most of the time, when I'm going through something, I remember the verse, where Peter tells us to cast your cares upon him because he cares for you. And it's a beautiful sentiment, and I believe it's true. I don't believe it's just a saying or something. I think it's the truth. I think we obviously are commanded. We're told, cast your cares upon him, cast your cares upon God, because he cares for you. And so, even though I quoted that verse to my friend in the process of talking with him and praying with him, but I said to him, honestly, I'm just going to be really honest, and I'm being honest with you guys, with my podcast audience and church family in podcast land. I really just don't know how to do that, really. Because honestly, when I found myself depressed or discouraged, first of all, my first reaction is not to just go to God immediately. And that's part of the problem, I think. I think a lot of us as Christians suffer from this. So when I feel depressed, or I feel, am in despair, or I feel lonely, or I feel sad, or I feel, I have some bad feelings, I tend to turn to something else. I'll watch a movie, or I will listen to music, or I will drink some coffee, or I will eat a candy bar, or I will, I will find other ways to sort of self-medicate and numb that feeling of pain or loneliness or emptiness. I try to fill myself up with food. Very often what I will do is I will buy things for myself. Let's just be honest. Can I just get really, really, really honest with you guys? That's one of my weaknesses. There's something. Let me kind of dig in this a little bit. This is an insight that I had about myself, and this might help you, because I realized this about myself probably about a year ago. I feel like the Lord just kind of opened my eyes about something. There's a great book called Love Languages, and I can't think of the author's name at the moment. But anyway, it's a really great book, and it's really intended to be a book about marriage and about relationships with the opposite sex. And what he does is he identifies, I think, 5 love languages. So some of those languages, I probably can't remember all 5 of them, but it's like his point is that there are 5 love languages, and that each of us has a dominant love language. We all receive love and express love in all 5 of these ways, but all of us tend to major on one of or 2 of them. And in other words, this is the way I receive love best. So it could be quality time, words of encouragement, acts of service, gift giving. I can't remember. I knew I would forget the 5th one. And a 5th one, which escapes me at the moment. And so his point in the book, I'm trying to summarize this quickly to move on to the point I want to make. So his point in the book is that a lot of marriages struggle because, let's say, the husband, his main way of receiving love, his love language, the way he receives love, the way he knows that he's loved by another person, is that person compliments him, let's say. So it's words of encouragement. So when someone says to him, "You're a great guy. You know what? I love you. You're awesome. You're great. Man, I love you. Man, you look really great today." Those words of encouragement, that is the main way that husband receives love. That's his major love language. And so because that's the way he receives love, that's also the way he tries to give love. So he will express love to his wife with words of encouragement. He will tell her, "You look beautiful today, honey. I love you. You're so special to me. You mean so much to me. Honey, I love you so much. You look so great today." And he will express love to her because that's the way he primarily receives love. But if her love language is not her love language is not those words of affirmation, then it's like it's not received by her as love. If her let's say her love language is acts of service, so she doesn't feel loved because he's telling her, "I love you, you're beautiful, I love you, you're special to me, I care so much for you, honey." He's throwing love at her, but it's in the wrong language. She doesn't feel love because he's not washing the dishes, he's not dusting the house, he's not making the bed, he's not picking up his underwear from the floor. She's looking for acts of service. Why don't you wash the car? Why don't you take it to get the oil change? Why don't you, these are acts of service. And if he did those things, then she would feel loved. Does that make sense? And so these are the combinations, and typically most married couples don't share the same love language. My wife and I, for example, pretty much is the example I just gave you. One of my love languages is words of affirmation. But what my wife's love language is acts of service. And so when you realize that in your marriage, it's like, whew, you're kidding me. Wow, this whole time I've been screaming at my wife or my husband how I love them, but in a love language that they don't recognize. And if I want them to know that I love them, the best way to do that is to find out what their primary love language is and to start, yelling, screaming, proclaiming my love to them in the way they hear it best and receive it best. Okay? So, again, my two primary love languages are words of affirmation and gift giving. So if someone loves me, they will, the way I receive love is if, wow, Keith, I bought this for you. Or I saw this and I thought, I thought Keith would really like this and I want to give this to you. Gift giving and words of affirmation are two of the ways I receive love most. So, keeping that in mind, when I'm depressed, when I'm sad, when I feel bad, I will tend to go on a shopping spree and purchase things for myself. And by giving myself gifts, I'm pushing that love button, that love feeling button in my soul, in my heart, in my spirit, however you want to think of it, as a way of wanting to push away that pain. So if you know what your love language is, maybe you do the same thing. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Maybe I'm unique in that. Just a thought. But so anyway, I realized that about myself, and I realized that, when I get sad and depressed, I end up on eBay buying a bunch of crap I don't need. Because what I'm really doing, what I'm really saying to myself is, I don't feel good right now. I feel depressed. And if I buy something, I think it's going to make me feel good. Now, the truth is it doesn't. It doesn't make me feel good because it's not genuine. It's coming from myself. It's not coming from someone who really loves me. And it's not doing the work. It's not doing the job. So anyway, back to my friend. As I'm talking to my friend and praying for my friend, I just confessed to him that even though I know that verse is true, cast your cares upon him because he cares for you. Quite often in my despair, first of all, like I said, I don't go to God first. I go to some other thing. But then that just makes it worse because I'm still not, the burden is still there. The pain is still there. So usually as a last resort, I'll go to God and cast my cares upon him, and I'll go to him and I'll say, God, your word says to cast my cares upon you because you care for me. So here it is, God. I hurt. Here's my pain. Here's my depression. Here's my despair. Here's my feeling. Here's my loneliness. I just confess it to you, God. Here it is. Okay, there it is. But nothing happens. I don't walk away with joy. I don't walk away with the burden lifted. And as I was talking to my friend, I just confessed to him and said to him, I don't get how to do that. I don't know, are there magic steps? Am I doing something out of order? Am I not, turn around 3 times, click my heels together and say, ollie, ollie, oxen free? I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but it doesn't work. Not most of the time, I'm saying. It doesn't really work for me. And so I was struggling with that, and I shared that with our house church family as well, and we prayed about that. And here's the cool thing. I felt like God showed me what I'm doing wrong. And I just love that because I'm content to just keep on doing it out of obedience, just to say, God, I believe you, and in obedience, I want to just do it. I want to just go ahead and cast my cares on you, and because because you care for me. And even though I do that and it doesn't immediately automatically make me feel better and lift my burden, I'm just going to keep doing that out of obedience, even though really nothing's changing. And so that's where I was stuck. That's where I was at. And I even wrote a blog about that very thing. But then after I wrote the blog, after I shared that with our house church family, you know what? God just did something really cool. Now, I'm going to tell you this. What I'm about to tell you works. Okay? This really works. No, it's not magic steps. No, it's not some magic formula. It's actually something first of all, when I tell you what it is, you're going to say, well, duh. Because it's not even anything that groundbreaking or, some huge epiphany. But I got so stuck with the mechanics idea, with the idea of I'm doing it. I'm coming to you, Jesus. I'm confessing to you that I have these burdens and nothing's happening. So here's what the Lord showed me. And really, he just let me experience it. And I'm betting you've experienced this exact thing too. We were spending some time in our house church family just worshiping him and coming before him and sitting in his presence and singing of his goodness and just, getting so lost in the goodness of God. And you know what? It's like God just showed me that I had it all turned around. I was looking at it upside down. The kingdom is upside down. I was looking at it from the wrong perspective. That the truth is, my perspective was still on my care. It was on my pain. It was on my despair, my loneliness, and, my issue. My focus was still on the pain. But the purpose is, the point is to cast my cares upon Him who loves me. My focus should be Him. To seek first Him and His kingdom and His righteousness. To not let my eyes turn to the problem or the worry or the concern or the feeling, but just simply go to Him. And it sounds corny, but it is true. That old hymn, what is it? Turn your eyes upon Jesus, look full in His wonderful face, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of His glory and grace. It's like when I came to Jesus, I simply just came to Him, not even to get anything. I didn't come to Him to get something. I just came to Him to worship Him. I came to Him because He's good. And the more I just focused on how good He was and how awesome He is and how just how sweet He is and how present He is, the more I just focused on that, it's like He just said, yeah, hey, let me take that off your shoulders. He just took it off. He just lifted it. I didn't even have to mention it. I didn't have to say, hey, God, I've got these. No. By just coming to Him and coming before Him in humility and worshiping Him and sitting at His feet and just reflecting on His goodness and His grace and His presence, you know what happened? He just reached over, He picked up those burdens, and they were gone. They were just gone. Now, if I stopped for a second and think about it, I could remind myself, oh yeah, I was concerned about that. This person said this about me. This hurt me. This situation is still going on. Those things were still happening, but it didn't matter. I wasn't aware of it because those things weren't important. The only thing that mattered was the one who cared for me, that He loved me, and just getting so lost in how astounding it is that the Creator of the entire universe knows me and loves me and cares about me. That lifted it. That was a beautiful thing. That was a really cool thing. So anyway, I'm sharing that with you, my podcast friends and family. I hope that's encouraging to you. Again, I apologize because it's not some huge, amazing thing that, oh my gosh, I can't believe Keith thought of that, because I didn't think of anything. It's just kind of my own kind of stupid experience of, this is what I've gone through. This is what what God has taught me, and just in the course of the last couple of weeks. So what will I do next time? Well, the next time I find myself sad, depressed, lonely, in despair, carrying a burden, I'm just going to find some time to sit and be still and know that He's God. I'm going to worship. I'm going to sing to Him. I'm going to just reflect on how good He is to me and how great He is. And I'm just going to love Him and receive love from Him. Just accept the love He has for me. So, I hope that's a blessing to you. I guess I'll go on and give a plug as well. I've gotten to know this guy, Tim Timmons, through our Motel Church ministry. And he has a song called Cast Your Cares, which I think you can probably find on YouTube, and you can get his CD on Amazon or something like that. I'm sure online you can go find it. I think you can probably even go to timtimmons.com or something like that too. But that's a great song. That song has really blessed me as well. Because again, the focus of the song is just how good He is, how great He is. And He's bigger than everything. And standing next to Him makes everything else smaller. Our problems, our issues just kind of fade away. So anyway, I promised you guys if I finished early, I would tell you a little bit about my next book. I don't know if you care, but hey, I got 10 minutes to kill, and I'm going to tell you anyway. So I started off the beginning of this year pretty ambitiously with about 3 book projects in mind, and 2 or 3 ebooks as well that I wanted to publish. Here we are halfway through the year. Summer solstice was yesterday. We're halfway through the year, and I've written nothing, published nothing. So there you go. My plan to publish 6 books, 3 books, and 3 ebooks. So far, not on track. But here's what is on track. I was kind of focused on, there's one main book. The 2 other book projects I was going to write are co-writing. I'm going to be co-writing some books with one with my youngest son and one with my friend Ken Eastburn. So the main book I wanted to write is about the covenant, about the new covenant. And so when I thought about the book, first of all, God just keeps reminding me of how important this book is. I've tried to put it down. I've tried to walk away. I've tried to just say, well, you never mind. This book doesn't need to be written. And he keeps reminding me over and over again, no, yes, this book does need to be written, and I do need to write this book. So I'm going to have to write the book. God's not going to let me off the hook until I write it. So I got to write this book. And he keeps reminding me why it's important. Because it keeps coming up to me mostly online. I keep running into situations and into people who are very, very confused about what our relationship should be to the Old Covenant Scriptures. I've talked about this here on the podcast a little bit on a couple of topics, but it's still true that, a lot of Christians are very confused. I have got this one book. It's only one book, and it's all the Word of God, and therefore all of it applies to me right here and now. But that isn't true. That isn't the case. And what we have actually is 66 books, and they're divided into two main things, which is one is the Old Covenant Scriptures and one is the New Covenant Scriptures. And anyway, the book I want to write, I just mainly want to write that book. I'm going to write a book that helps Christians have a right understanding of their relationship to the Old Covenant Scriptures and to the New Covenant reality. That's the book I want to write. But in the process of trying to write that book, what I realized is that I can't write that book. I can't just write that book, because to write that book, I have to also write 3 other little books that would have to wrap into that book, because in the process of talking about that, I also have to talk about Zionism. And then I also have to talk about preterism and futurism and, a bunch of other stuff. And as much, and I'm prepared to talk about those things, and I've blogged about those things, and I've done podcasts about those topics. So it's not like I can't, or I don't even, not even that I don't want to. It's just that it's stressful enough to write a book anyway. This will be my 7th book, I think, 6th or 7th book, and so writing a book itself is stressful. But the idea of writing a book that's actually 3 books at once is even more stressful. Like, oh, are you kidding me? I got to write 3 books at the same time, really. Or I got to write the book I want to write, and I got to write 3 other books to kind of justify the book I wanted to write. Anyway, so I feel like God helped me resolve that and gave me sort of an outline to follow and a really just a way to tackle that, the way to do that. So I feel like I know how to do that now. And now I'm just going to start working on that. And so I'd appreciate your prayers as I start that process. I do hope to finish that book. The other thing I want to start doing is, again, as quickly as possible, is there's an ebook. Again, I had 3 ebooks I wanted to write, but the one in particular that I really, really want to make sure, if nothing else, that I get published before the end of this year is an ebook about organic church. I wrote a book called This Is My Body, Ecclesia as God Intended, which is available as a free download, as a free ebook for iPod or any ebook reader, Nook or Kindle or anything like that. You can go to my website and download that for free. And that was great. I enjoyed writing that book, and I got great response from that book, I'm very happy with that book. But there were a whole lot of things, practical things, that people who read that book came to me and had a lot of questions about. Like, but what does it look like? How do I do it? And, most of us, we know what we don't want to do, but we don't know what it should look like. And so I want to publish an ebook that will deal with sort of the, how to do organic church, what it looks like, kind of a thing. So I guess I'm playing with the title House Church Dynamics, but that hopefully will get done as well very soon. The book is written. The ebook is already written. The problem is just the hassle of going through the process of creating the ebook document. It's really tedious. Every time I do an ebook, I have to start from scratch. I have to go on, and download the template and, step 1, walk through this whole thing to remind me of how to do this thing, because it's not intuitive. It's not automatic for me yet. It's kind of a pain in the butt. So, yes, hopefully I will find some time to sit down and format the ebook, which is already written, and get that thing up on Amazon and available. And then I'll also start working on my next book about the One Covenant. Anyway, again, if you have any questions, please email me. You can contact me on my blog. You can leave a comment, and I will respond. Or you can follow me on Twitter as well. Thank you for listening, and do again appreciate your prayers. And hopefully it won't be so long before we meet again on the Subversive Podcast. God bless. Good night, and let the kingdom come.